Welcome. We're coming to you today from the Verizon 5G lab in Playa Vista, California. I'm Jim Chabin from the Advanced Imaging Society, and this is Remote Control 2. That first shot was powered entirely by just a 5G Sony cell phone connection and the Meetmo platform we're using for this telecast. Today, Hollywood is back to work and movie theaters are reopening. Streaming services are placing orders for hundreds of hours of content, so finally, there is confidence in the air again. But our studio and streaming partners are telling us that much of what we've learned this year will not go away when the pandemic is behind us. So remote collaboration and industry transformation are here to stay, and our creative community is adapting with revolutionary ideas to stay cutting edge and busy. We want to thank you all for joining us from all over the US and the world. And we want to thank our ongoing sponsors, Barbara Marshall of HP and their ZCentral work products, and Rick Champagne of NVIDIA. And we especially need to thank Michael Mansouri and his team from Radiant Images. Special thanks also go to Sony Electronics for their fantastic cameras, 5G phones and equipment, Verizon 5G Labs for their amazing infrastructure and facility, Brave New Media, and our media and trade group partners, Computer Graphics World and the NAB Show. So welcome back to our series of conversations with the creatives who are using technology to transform the way we all work in media and entertainment. And now here's AIS Chairman from Google, Buzz Hayes, to tell us a little about today's program. Buzz.
Thank you, Jim. Today, we're going to hear from visual effects Oscar winner Rob Legato, who will discuss how he collaborates with directors virtually. He's got some incredible footage to share with us, so don't go anywhere. And we're also going to hear from Clifton Robin from HP ZCentral. He's going to join us with a case study on how platforms are able to leverage and collaborate to create a new virtual workflow. And then we'll visit with Evercast CTO, Jon Walkenhorst, who will show us how their award-winning workflow system has enabled A-list productions to get things made. Our first guest's brilliant work has been seen by literally billions of movie fans. He has won 3 Academy Awards for his visual effects on The Lion King, The Jungle Book, and Martin Scorsese's Hugo. Rob Legato will be joining us live to take you on his creative journey with virtual production, and he'll be joined by Barbara Marshall. He'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation, so please put your questions in the chat window and we'll get answers for as many of them as we have time for. But first up, we have a new trailer from Warner Brothers. This film is based on the hit Broadway musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's directed by John Chu, and it will release June 18th in theaters and on HBO Max. Here is In the Heights.
Let me just listen to my block. It's quiet. Usually the one train's up there screeching.
There's so much stuff going on. Just got me thinking about all the people I care about the most. There's a breeze off the Hudson, and just when you think you're sick of living here, the memory floods in. The morning light off the fire escapes. The nights in Bennett Park blasting Big Pun tapes. It's a story of a block that was disappearing. Once upon a time, in a faraway land called Washington Heights. Who's gonna notice we're gone? Say it, so it doesn't disappear.
Washington Heights!
Look who's home! Bad changes happening on the block since you've been at school. When it came to dreams, we had to keep scraping by.
Ice cold piragua!
It's silly when we get into these crazy hypotheticals. You really want some bread, then go ahead, create a set of goals.
I pick a business school and pay the entrance fee. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll stay friends with me.
They used to say, if you work hard, you live by the rules, the things will come, and those things will heal you. I'm not gonna sit here and give you some fairy tale.
Ignore anyone who doubts you.
Cause this place, this is it.
1, 2, 3.
I just wanna see the whole world through her eyes.
Let's go!
Go show them who we are.
Today's all we got, so we cannot stop. This is our block!
This is the moment where you do better than me. Because you can see a future that I can't.
Sonny, you're late. You know you love me?
We can
pay off the debts we owe.
Tell everyone we know.
We are not powerless. We are powerful.
And we'll get the dough, and once we get going, we're never gonna. 96,000. 96,000. Get the dough. 96,000. Get the dough, and once we get going, we're never gonna stop.
Rob Legato has been an industry leader in visual effects for 3 decades. You've seen his work in movies and TV, including Titanic, Apollo 13, The Aviator, The Departed, Avatar, The Wolf of Wall Street, The Twilight Zone, and countless TV series, including Star Trek: The Next Generation. After his presentation, he'll be joined by Barbara Marshall to answer your questions. So please be sure to put them in the chat during the presentation. Now I'd like to welcome Rob. Good morning, Rob, and thanks so much for being here.
And
Hello and welcome. I'm Barbara Marshall, M&E Industry Manager for HP's Advanced Computing Solutions Division. I'm delighted to be speaking with 3 times Oscar winner, VFX supervisor, director, and director of photography, Rob Legato. Rob has had a distinguished and varied career and is known for such blockbusters as Titanic, Hugo, The Jungle Book, The Lion King, and most recently, Borat's subsequent movie film. He is a pioneer in the virtual production space, and we will be discussing the latest trends in movie making. If you have questions for Rob, please put them in the chat and I will incorporate them into our session. So Rob, the past year has been pretty tough and weird and very different for pretty much everyone. How's it been for you?
It's been a pretty interesting year. I mean, you're sort of adapting to all these techniques like we're doing right now to continue to work and function. You know, unfortunately, the business in general, some of the films that normally would be going got canceled, or they got in some of the films I would have done maybe for Disney, go to Disney Plus and things like that with lower budgets and stuff like that. So there's the industry-wide thing, and then there is actually functioning with using a virtual production, which we had before, but we never were forced to use it. We did it when we chose to, but most people felt more comfortable being in the same room with someone, and it never really took hold. But because of COVID, now all of a sudden you have to do it that way. And so I did several projects that way. I worked on a Michael Bay film, worked on Borat, I worked on a Google presentation, and a couple of the little things here and there, not like big, huge projects, but I did some previs for a future film that helped maybe get a greenlit and things like that. So I was able to function, and quite frankly for me, because I used to work with Martin Scorsese a lot, he was in New York and I was out here, I would work out of my basement and I would not use the techniques we're using now necessarily, but get on the internet, give them a temp, they'd make a comment, I get back. Occasionally we try to do a video conference that never worked. It would always, glitch and be bad, and it's long before these days. But so I was kind of used to doing that, having a little bit of a remote session anyway. So I adapted to it pretty quickly, I'd say.
So you've talked a bit about how you were doing a little bit of remote before it was thrust upon us, and now that it's been thrust upon us, in what way has that changed? Like what is it forced people to do differently?
Well, it forced people to actually adapt to what we're doing now, which is essentially a Zoom or this particular software product. But what it allowed you to do that the other ones were not sophisticated enough, because there'd be FaceTime or whatever, and it didn't have all the functionality that this has. And one of the great things that I used when I was doing Borat is friends of mine were compositing some of the shots, is that to save time, I could look at their desktop. And if I needed to, I could actually operate their desktop to make a little fine-tune adjustment here and there. So all of a sudden, I was doing a very personal one-to-one interaction with somebody. And because Zoom became, I'm using that as a catchword for all the different software, became that functionality. People were just used to it, so they didn't, blanch at like, oh, like if I mentioned it to Marty and Thelma, that we do a video conference, it'd be like, oh, he hates it, forget it, it's not going to. But now we're used to it. It's like, well, just hop on Zoom and let me show you what I was working on my computer. And then you see it and then say, oh, well, here's what I was doing. And all of a sudden you forget you're in this world and you're just communicating one-on-one. The other thing, if I go off on a tangent a little bit, is when I was learning how to use Unreal, I didn't really know how to use the program. So I had somebody actually operate it by operating my desktop. So I could operate the camera and I could, do what I normally do. Could you make it a little lower, move the sun, do all these things, and the operator would do it. We had a Google chat. I think they even changed the name of it now, but there was some other product that you just leave on all day long, and their faces there. You could hear them talking, and you start to talk in between takes and things personally. Ask about their house and the new dog they got, and you're kind of in this personal realm, which made it kind of comfortable to work. It actually was not that odd, and it's literally because people. A Zoom thing is just now second nature. And before it was, a bizarre thing that no one really wanted to do. It was a little bit like, if you remember Get Smart, the cone of silence. It's like the cone of silence would come down and would never really work, and they hated it, and they moved the cone of silence back up again. That's what video conferencing used to be like, and now it's very commonplace.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've said, and I've heard other people saying this, that they've kept like a Zoom room open, or whatever, as you say, whatever software they're using, kept it open so that people can pop in and out. So I'm curious about where you are, because I've seen you down in your basement before. So I wonder if you can just talk about a little bit about your setup from home, and maybe even show us how you are working.
Well, I have two setups. One is in the basement, where I have my equipment, the Panatilt wheels, and the big HP computer with the RTX 8000 card and all the stuff. And I have a whole video setup where I have a screening room area and 5 or 6 screens, and I could route any video to anything. And I use that because I use the Avid or Premiere or Resolve quite a bit and things like that. And I can route it to any screen I want to, and also put it on this screen share and actually just share the video feed from what I'm doing. So that's that setup. And here I'm in my kitchen, and I have just a laptop set up, and we're doing this from up here. And on my laptop, I also have Unreal and Premiere and a couple other things. So it's quite a bit less set up, but it allows me to be, there's a lot of light in this room, and I feel like I'm not so sequestered and, forced to go down into my dungeon.
I know that feeling. I usually sit upstairs on the dining room table, but I've come down to the basement for lighting purposes today.
And you have a nice fireplace in the background.
Yeah, I don't know how to use it though. So you just mentioned that you've got Unreal running on your laptop. And I think you were saying that you'd be happy to just show us a little bit about how you have been working virtually and how you've been collaborating with people in Unreal. Is that something that you can?
Yeah, let me try it. I'll see if this works. So I can't show, the films I've been working on because they're proprietary and things like that. So I put up a sample screen or sample scene in Unreal. So this is, it's a little camera move I put into the program, and this would be an example of how we would collaborate. I could move the camera around, change the speed of the move. I could show everybody where the various rooms are and things like that. And if it were a real collaboration, the art director would be involved, the director might be involved, the DP, and we would just talk like you would if it was a real object in front of you. And I could go into VR, and when you work with an art director in multiplayer mode, you could both people be in VR, or the director himself, and be able to actually see the little avatars of each other and say, well, I like this, but I want to move the chairs. Can we change that painting on the wall? And you're in a physical space in VR that makes it feel like you're actually in the set. So you respond to things three-dimensionally like it is, like you would on a real set. You see input, you move it in real time, you get a decision from that, you like it, you hate it, you make another adjustment. It's way different than just looking at a 2D environment that you're trying to kind of figure out what the 3 dimensions are. Because things come to you, like if you're a cameraman, like right now I put the dolly track right here because it's the open space that I would have if I were really doing it in on a real shoot. So I wouldn't necessarily do that if I didn't know, have a real feel for the 3D environment. I could try now, see if this works. I'll go into VR and I'll show you a little bit of what I normally do. But do you have any questions before I do that?
Sure, great. No, I was curious about the use cases. Like over the past year, you've talked about meeting in this Unreal environment. Is that for, I don't know, scene blocking, previs?
It's actually for almost all of it. In the previs world, I was working on film with Michael Bay, and we had to set up a laptop at his place in Miami, and the same like what I have right here upstairs. I have two different VR systems. One's the Oculus, and the other one is the Vive downstairs. One has the towers, and the other one is moving because of the tracking devices built into the visor. But at any rate, he would go in, and he loved it. He would go into VR and take snapshots, and I'll show you how we do that in a minute. He would take snapshots, and those would be, way more than glorified storyboard frames, because those are actually the angle, the spot, the lens choice, maybe even the lighting choice. And you have a fairly clear understanding from the director how he views the picture, so that when you go create the previs, not that there wasn't freedom for me to go do what I like to do as well, but he would say, well, I like that, except, man, I would put the camera a little lower and use a 14mm lens, and I would do that. And so it was a very easy visual communication when you're working with a very visual director. Each director is a little different, and you would work with them differently, where you would show them the possibilities. In the case of Michael, because he's has a great eye, he shows you the Michael Bay style of shooting that scene, just the way Jim Cameron would. So everybody's a little different, but everybody benefits from the ability to see, what the real environment is. Because once you see the real environment, you decide, well, maybe I wouldn't stage it there by here. Maybe I would do it out here. Maybe they would be out by the window. Maybe they would sit on the couch. Maybe they would get up from the couch and walk out over here. So all those things now start to percolate in your head, and you respond as you would if it were real, if you're really in that environment.
Yeah, I think it's about being able to see things in human scale, isn't it? And actually being immersed in it rather than trying to imagine. Not everybody has the same vision. So if you can physically be there together.
Yeah, and also for us, who used to work on live sets, it sparks your intuition. Your intuition is kind of the thing that you've had like a lifetime of movies you've seen and pictures and things that impressed you. They kind of percolate up in your head. And as soon as you see something, it sparks, this, what we would call intuition, but it's really kind of a collection, like a library of images and things that go, oh, now that I see that, I would do this. But without that spark, your intuition isn't tickled. It isn't excited for you to actually respond. And I, of course, respond to things in real time because that's what I'm used to. And I usually equate it to music. If you animate something, you're doing, one moment, one movement at a time, with X number of time units in between the next movement and the next movement. It's like if you're doing music and you hit the piano key and then you wait 5 seconds and hit the other one, and then hit the other one. It's really hard to compose something in your natural way of working. And as a cameraman and a director, as well as a supervisor, the real time of it all is what I like and I can contribute to. So we sort of make up these systems, like these previous systems, to take advantage of the analog nature of making split-second decisions excited by what we're seeing, by the visual aspect of it. And it sparks you to say, oh, I love that shot, but the light is terrible. Why don't we move the light over here? And you see that, and then that creates the next level and creates the next level. And so it's the thing that you use to actually get you inspired to do better and better and better.
So we're getting some questions in from the audience, but before I start firing those at you, did you say, do you want to jump into the headset and show us what it's?
Yeah, let me see if I can get it to work, and if it does.
And no worries if you can't. Live television and all that.
Yeah.
So you're in the headset now.
In the headset now, making up boundaries, so I can walk around. I don't know if you see what I'm seeing. And now I'm in the room. I think you can see this now, can you?
Yeah, we can see you. The microphone, of course, is on the laptop, so you're a little muffled. But yeah, we can see you walking around the environment, and I can see your dolly now.
Okay, and then I will do this, which I will animate to the camera. And now you can see the camera move that I did now working. I'll shout a little bit annoyingly. And so while I'm here, what I can easily do is say, well, let me, and everybody can be seeing what I'm doing. So I can see this chair here. I can move it around.
Great, yeah.
And you know, basically all the props. And so if you have the art director with you, they might do that. The cameraman might do that. The director would say, well, let's take 2 chairs out of the way. And I'm going to fix something. Okay, good. So now when I move things, it'll be a little easier. And just so you see how it works for like a director is here's a director's finder essentially, and I can take a snapshot.
Right, and then as you say, that can be kind of keyframes and storyboards.
That's a storyboard frame. I can walk over here. So in seconds, I could be creating the vocabulary of the scene. And here's all the things we're going to shoot today.
Great.
And you could collect all these and then literally make storyboards. And then for the crew and the director and the editor and whoever else wants to be involved, they usually when you walk on a set, you really don't know what's going to happen because it's all in the director's head. They don't generally storyboard many scenes. A lot of them don't even like storyboards like myself. But these are now very accurate depictions. And this set could be either a virtual set that you put on a video wall, or it can be a set that you're ultimately going to build. But because it's furnished and lit, you can, with great authority, create a storyboard frame that will replicate what you can in fact shoot. Because I'm
Oh, Rob, can you hear me? If you come and maybe come back and
well, let me explain. You know, it's very difficult because I'm pretty far away from the microphone.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let me get back.
We can hear you great now. I think you were just out of zone, but
I was out in my kitchen somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, that's given us. Go ahead.
Yeah. So now, so those just to complete the thought of that, those particular photographs can then be published. The director could be doing that in his house, then send me the photographs, or I could see it live on my screen.
You were in there demoing how you could, in Unreal, in the virtual environment, demoing how you could move objects around in the virtual set. And Katie was asking, can only one person have the ability to do that, or can multiple people?
Multiple people, I think up to 5, but I could be mistaken that that there might be able to do more, but I know that at least 5 can do it at the same time.
Great. And then also one of the topics that I think it's so important to people, and you mentioned it, you basically have taught yourself how to use Unreal over this past year. So Leslie was asking, how hard is it for Unreal to learn Unreal for filmmakers?
Well, it depends on the person. I have peculiar learning things, so it might take me longer initially, but once I understand the logic of something, then it starts to become fairly straightforward. Then I actually were able to discover things that it can do that maybe they never really planned on it doing, but that I could take advantage of. But I had a little steeper learning curve, and also I knew another program called Cinema 4D, which had things very specifically laid out that I thought were totally applicable, but they're different things. They seem to do the same stuff. One's more for like traditional, like Maya-esque type work. And the other one is literally strictly made for games that now got converted because of how great it is to do what we do. If there's, at the end, I should probably go into the video wall application with Unreal as part of this whole virtual workflow as well when we get into that.
So, yeah, well, maybe we can talk about that now. I know we only have a few minutes to in this follow-up session, but yeah, I think that's interesting.
All right, I'll try to give you the brief version. I was doing a thing for presentation for the Academy of Arts and Sciences, and they want to educate the branches on how this works. And what we were able to do, and what we want to feature, is that an Unreal, like that set, was not totally photoreal, but it could be. It could be textured and look like absolutely the real thing. And we were doing that in this session, and we could work remotely. So it means that set will never be built, but it will appear on a video wall as a real set. It will look like when you photograph a human in front of it, that it will look like they're definitely in that space. The lighting is the same. Camera moves, whatever camera move you do, moves the background as well as the foreground. So you could actually work and create and art direct and light the set remotely, just like we're doing here. And then when we say we're happy with it, it gets shipped to the stage, and in an hour you could shoot out like the scene we did for the Academy, and it's photoreal. It looks like the real thing. So it becomes how we would have made movies before, except you didn't have to go to the studio, you didn't have to get all the trucks and all the things shipped in, and all the kind of waste that is associated with that. You know, you could actually save tons of time and pollutants that are going in the air just because you don't need to build something that you don't need to build.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up that sort of environmental aspect. I think, you know, we're all benefiting to a certain extent from our own personal time. I say benefiting. I think most people are saying they're working longer hours than they ever did before. But I'm interested in what you were saying about the environmental impact of this virtual way of working.
Yeah, well, it's true. Like right now, because of Zoom, it sort of forced us to now work this way, that it becomes commonplace to do it. I would probably never go to, you know, the West Side for an hour meeting again, because I don't need to. I could save the gas and the wear and tear in the car and the traffic that gets backed up, which like geometrically produces even more waste for people waiting longer in their cars. Just for the simple act of, I could do this in a half hour, I'm done, and I could work on everything else that day. And what it used to happen, just as an illustration, I'm in Pasadena, and the West Side is about an hour and a half away, depending on traffic. Could be as little as an hour, but very rarely, unless there's no traffic or it's a holiday or something. And so it would take an hour and a half to get there, hour for the meeting, hour and a half back. Well, now you're sort of in the middle of the day, you know, you're either at lunch or you're going back to rush hour, and sometimes it could take 2 hours back. So that's my day for an hour's worth of work, if that. So it's like, well, I could be way more productive, get maybe more things done if I don't have to do something like that. And so I think that's true for everyone, you know. And I think even if we just said, now that we're used to working at home, let's pick one day a week and you work from home. Well, imagine what it does for the traffic, imagine what it does for gas consumption, imagine what it does for pollutants in the air, to say, okay, 1/5 of your work week is going to be removed. And there's no impingement on your ability to actually do your job. So, you know, I think that, you know, we now start to see a little avenue that we can actually help the environment and work virtually and not give anything else up, and actually be a tad more pleasant. I mean, who wouldn't want to, you know, when you're finally working and you get all the social things out of the way, to have, you know, an extra day to yourself, have a much longer weekend to start with, and all that stuff. So I think it's beneficial for a lot of people, even though it feels restrictive now. It won't be in a year from now.
Yeah, it's good to move on to that topic of like what's going to stay, looking to the future. It sounds like you believe a lot of what last year has forced us to do, people are going to keep doing.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things. One of them, you know, with the social distancing and everything has to do now, you're now forced to say a video wall becomes a viable way of shooting some portions of our movie. That forced that into being much sooner than it would have been. It would have happened, but it might be, you know, 3-4 years from now. Well, now it's here. People are building these stages, and the fact that we could work comfortably remotely, whether you want to do it at an office or not, that's another story. But for the most part, you could be remote. Your experts could live in another part of the world, quite frankly. The art director could live in another part of the world. And you create something that's an absolutely dead photo reel that fits the movie, that does all the various things, you'll never really go back to not doing that. That becomes, once you see the economy of it, once you see the quality of it, once you see the opportunities that you can get from that's never going to go away. Having these sorts of meetings is never going to go away. I mean, one of the examples when I was working on previs before I learned Unreal that I could operate it myself, I would have an expert who would be operating my machine. And then when they get stuck, you have to call in yet another expert. So in our normal production, just for insurance, you'd have all those people in your building all day long, and you only need them for 25 minutes at the most. But you got to house them, you got to put their computers there. So all the costs that's involved in it to get one expert to say, oh, you forgot to do this, or let me rewrite a little piece of code and change that. Well, all I had to do is phone in, go to the same chat room that we were in, take over your machine and go, okay, I know what the solution is, and do it. And they could be literally anywhere in the world, and they could be like troubleshooting for 50 clients instead of you hiring them just for the one thing. So that'll stay. That'll become the remoting into a computer to fix it, to operate it, to show somebody how to do something. And also the last thing I'll do, I'll try to keep it short, is that you don't have to know how to operate some of these programs to do the fine tuning knob adjustment of how bright, how dark. I could set it all up, give you control of the mouse and say, just touch this button, go right or left until you find the setting that you like. And you don't have to know, you don't have to have the program in front of you. You don't have to know how to use it. All you have to know is tell me what knob to hit, and I'll do the taste factor portion of it. So it allows people who are not technically adroit at this, who don't even like this kind of technology, who feel, very like they can't compete in this world, can now do it. And then they'll probably learn to like it. It's one of those things that just have a natural fear of things until they do. It's like, well, that's pretty easy. What else can I do? Can I do? And all of a sudden, then they get interested and they start working on it. So that will also be something that's here to stay. Is the people who are intrinsically afraid of technology will start to see its benefit.
So that raises a question I hear a lot. It's that sort of push-pull feeling between the inclusion aspect or the accessibility. I mean, Unreal is free, you've taught yourself. So on the one hand, we hear about the accessibility, and then on the other hand, what would you say to people who fear the traditional roles are perhaps being lost, or are they?
Well, I think they're not. And the reason they're not is at the end of the day, it's what's on the screen means everything. How you got it there is immaterial. All movies are fake. There's no reality to anything we're doing. Even if we shoot on location, you're bringing cars and things in and props and signs and, so there's nothing that's absolutely real. So this is no different, because at the end of the day, whatever's on the screen has to be brought there by an artist of some kind. So, I can't set decorate a set. I mean, that's not one of my skills. But a set decorator, you could get them on literally a Zoom call and say, how would you do this? And they would say, well, let me show you. I would get a plant in the corner, and I would get this over here. And all of a sudden starts to look like someone's house as opposed to somebody with no artistic ability doing it. So they have to be able to do it. And if you're afraid of physically the technology, you won't be after a while when you see how easy it is to work. But at first, instead of shying away from it, and also the thing we did for the Academy is to say, let's include everybody. Let's make it so that you feel comfortable that your job is not in jeopardy, because we value your job. Your job is taste and art and years of experience and years of going to art school and learning your craft. Somebody who knows how to use the program, that's not part of their skill set yet. They may get there and they may be good at it at one day, but we still need the director of photography to light the set, still need a director and a director of photography to block out a scene to be best photographed. Then we need the production designer to build a set and of an environment that is suggestive of the character and the time in the story that takes place and what it means. All those jobs are the same. They don't change, and they will never change. Art is art, and of course, acting is the other greatest art form that will never change. We need actors, no matter who or how they show themselves on screen, to actually propel the character.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm loving about the virtual production environment and talking to you in the past is it seems that it's bringing back the creative control and decision making back to the studio floor rather than leaving it till the post-production phase. So how has that affected you as a visual effects supervisor?
Well, what has affected me is my career is based on trying to have as many things in front of me to make a valuable decision. And when I have a blank slate in front of me, you tend to not have any ideas and you shoot things generically. And then later, you then try to pack the frame to make it make sense why you framed that in the first place. But you didn't frame it on purpose to actually accentuate a mood or a tone or whatever. You just like, I don't know what I was doing, so I just put it here and photograph somebody talking, and then somehow we're going to make it. Well, that is not filmmaking. That is, you could do it, and we've done it a lot. It's called post-viz, but shot after shot after shot no longer has the through line of a beautifully crafted movie where everything's in front of you and you react chemically to the actors and the set and the light and everything else. So you try to create an entire environment where you have as many of the details in front of you to make the consistently derived art call of every shot, every moment, everything. So this allows you to be able to do that again, because just in a classic visual effect where it's an afterthought, people rush through that particular moment. It doesn't really look real at the moment you're shooting it, and you see the difference. I mean, you see something when it's really well crafted, well acted, and an actor responds to another actor, and that responds to the director, and the director of photography changes the framing a little bit because something new is happening. Well, the absence of that is also the absence of life. It just becomes very clinical, and that's the part that kills the process and makes people go, well, I know what to do when I have everything in front of me. I really don't know what to do. It's like trying to play chess without seeing the chess pieces. A genius can do it, but the rest of us can't, because we need to see the visual. We need to see the board laid out in front of us to actually make the correct move. And so my career has always been trying to have as much stuff, and that's why, you know, virtual cameras and now getting it closer and closer to photoreal means it's closer and closer to the final movie. And my decision is now a very accurate one. It's what I would do if I had everything in front of me, which is ultimately what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, no, I think, well, I think it did. But something you just said, you said the absence of life, and that relates to a question that Ron has posed. What does the industry think the future of movie theaters as we know them will be in the future?
Well, I have my own opinion of what I think it should be and could be. I think that the movie-going experience and the big screen will never really go away. Drive-ins may come back, because now you can have drive-ins again, because we have superior projection facilities and things like that. So the social aspect is not really going away. What has been a trend that has not been for a lot of people a great trend is people only go to movies to see event films, which are usually exclude then the Chinatowns and the Godfathers and the movies we kind of grew up with, which would probably now be best seen on HBO or whatever channel, which are now quite superior. So those films are very difficult to make and make money in a movie theater. But my thought process, and hopefully somebody will steal it and use it, is that Amazon, HBO, whoever should have their own theaters, and part of their subscription of seeing you know, your movie in your house is 4 or 5 times a month or whatever. You get a pass to go to a movie theater to see one of their movies, which don't have to now have a weekend box office to create a business model that they can succeed at. It's very hard to make a $50 million film now and get it in a movie theater, because it may not make enough money to justify its existence. So that now is relegated to television. But you still now say, well, I really do want to see that with my friends and people and date night and whatever. And the other aspect of it, I think, that somebody should take advantage of is that once you have a hit, Game of Thrones or the Crown or whatever is something that now has a fan base, imagine You'd say, okay, well, I could see it now 5 days before it airs. I'll go to my local Amazon theater, and I'll be with all the people who love that show, and we get to see something sooner than later, and we get to see it with our friends, and maybe there's a bar and you can have a drink, and after the movie you get to discuss it, or after the show, and it becomes what movies used to be, which are people used to go to the movies to see serials. They would see, on Saturdays, the kids would go to see the, one thing, and then next week you come back to see the next episode of that serial. So it's not even a model that's brand new. Mm. Movies used to be, our only way of seeing something. Now could be our way of seeing it and enjoying it with a public, which I think we all miss. I think we all want to see a baseball game, a concert, whatever, and also be able to see it in our house if we want to do that too. So that's my little thing of what I think the future should or could be.
Yeah, and you've touched on Marcus's question, which was, will the industry continue to release films via streaming services as well as have a simultaneous release in theaters? So I think you're kind of predicting a bit of both, and it's an interesting business model that you're proposing.
Yeah, and I think it would, because now you have a choice. You can still now choose to see it at home, or you could go to the Amazon theater using my model, in fact, and then go into the movie theater at the same time, and you get to pick and choose. They're probably going to still want the big Marvel movies and the Lion Kings and things like that to play in a movie theater, because it's a tremendous revenue stream for that. So I think that will always have a little bit of a window between what's available in the movie theater and what's available at home. COVID forces us to, have to see it at home. But as soon as we're back, I think we can change better what we were doing and what the trend was, which was essentially eliminating movie going for anything other than a big event film.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rob. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and talking about what the future may hold. And thank you for bearing with us, and to the audience, thank you for bearing with us. I'm going to hand over to Jim now. And yeah, thank you once again, Rob.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And Barbara, I could listen to you all day. As a testament to our Meetmo technology that we're using, Rob's Q&A was actually streamed completely from his cell phone connection. Buzz, yes. We're back, and you've got a poll question.
Yes. So we have a question that we're going to be putting here in the chat in a second. And the chat, you'll see at the bottom. But our question this time is, do you expect to be busier this year in your work than you were last year in 2020, now that we're working at home? So the responses are: 1, you expect to be busier with more work. 2, you're expecting to be less busy with less work. And 3, about the same level of work as 2020. So if you don't mind, answer it in the box below the chat, and we'll share the answers a little bit later in the show. You'll see a button right there. So what I'd like to do right now is turn it over to Jim for something new from the Marvel Universe that you can expect to see soon. Jim?
All right, we're trying to sort out our technical issues, and this is the world we all live in. So thanks for being patient. They're trying to fix the audio, but we've got something from Marvel Studios right now. A new 6-part episode based on 3 Marvel works. It's a buddy comedy created by Malcolm Spellman and directed by Kerry Skoglund. The pandemic halted production in Atlanta for several months last fall, but it premieres tomorrow night on Disney+. With a reported production budget of $150 million, here's a look at the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Let's watch.
It feels like it belongs to someone else. That shield represents a lot of things to a lot of people. Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning.
We need someone to inspire us again.
The world's more complicated now.
We're never gonna stop. This world is us. There's no going back.
It doesn't have to be a war.
It already is.
We can't lose this fight. If we do this, we're gonna do it our own way. So we're partners, co-workers, not necessarily a team. No. We look damn good, though.
Our next presentation centers around remote collaboration for creatives, from the script to the screen. And the system being discussed here is the second Emmy Award-winning technology featured today. Leading our presentation is Clifton Robin, who serves as Global Tech Manager of ZCentral. The HPZ Remote Boost empowers creative teams to keep brilliant content flowing while working remotely. Welcome, Clifton, and looking forward to your demo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clifton Robin, and I'm part of the HPZ Central team. We're going to be talking today about remote working and collaboration from home, something that's near and dear to our hearts. My role with HP is I'm part of our worldwide technical marketing team, and I help implement solutions worldwide for folks that need remote access. What we're going to do today is a short presentation, and most of this is going to be hands-on demo with some Q&A at the end. There is a chat window that you can go ahead and at any time put Q&A questions in. We have folks monitoring that. We'll bring those up at the end, and if they think it's interesting or pertinent, they'll also interrupt me, and we'll discuss it right then. We also have a couple of guests on here, Brett and Barbara, who will introduce themselves later, as they're going to be part of the Q&A and also helping in something we call the collaboration mode. So let's get into it. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. So what we're going to be looking at here is the HP solution for being able to deal with the current normal, which really is about working from home. You know, hopefully we're coming out of this, but it's still the aspect and the area that we all have to deal with, whether it's remote editing, the sound management, getting to a studio, getting people to collaborate, keeping our workflows intact, and being optimized both as humans for how we communicate and share things, but also for the technology, remembering that our whole experience is about a portal into our world of compute, whether it's your favorite editing device and software or whatever access tool you may use. It's still a portal, and the desire is whatever you're looking at, the human senses don't have any physicality towards seeing, hey, I have delay, I have glitches, I can tell I'm not local, this isn't any good, it's taking me out of the experience. Get the technology out of the way so the person, the talent that needs to do the thing can do the thing, and it just works the way it always does, whether it's at home, remote, some other place else, or at their workstation on site, because that's where a lot of customers are going to, is some kind of hybrid mode. So how do we get there? We have something called the ZCentral solution, and what this is HP hardware. Some of it's purpose-built and was launched in September. ZCentral Remote Boost, which if you've been a long-time customer of HP workstations, was called RGS, Remote Graphics Software, is now part of this family umbrella called ZCentral. And ZCentral Connect, which is kind of a librarian, a manager of this stuff. And I'm going to go through quick demos of all these things and show you that, especially as I mentioned, our collaboration mode for how that works. But keep in mind, it's basically a hardware, people and on both ends, and blueware together provided by HP. So what does that look like? Well, we have our rack-mounted workstations, which again could be just a rack-mounted workstation, but it also could be our Z2 Minis and our new 4R, which is a single U or one unit workstation designed specifically for being rackable. It's not something that was a server that was special purposed and brought down. It is a workstation that was designed specifically for this. We have remote access that actually works on anything. And that is designed to be leveraged as ZCentral product and our HPZ systems, and you do get part of that license free with Z, and we'll go into that in a moment. But it's basically, if you have a Z system, you already have rights to the remote access software I'm going to be talking about. You just load it and go, it works. The ZCentral Connect is our librarian, our management tool that helps manage the fleet of information for this brokering, this connection. And I'll explain that more in a second. The thing to realize with this is we're trying to build an ecosystem of leverage so that we can use the existing products and the things that are growing in the future, so we can better connect everyone together for accessing the power compute, regardless of what they have on the other end. So what does this look like? Well, this is a real quick view of our HPZ Central 4 This is our new single U rack-mounted workstation, which, if you're familiar with our Z4 class, which is kind of our mid-range, it is similar to that. We basically took a desktop and we, you know how you build a sword, you pound the metal down and you stretch it out. We did the same thing here. I'm pretty sure. I know software, not hardware that much. But it does support dual graphics cards, and it has the ability to support up to 1,300 watts of power, for that dual graphics card solution. So these are things that we're happy to talk to folks about more. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because the software itself, which is Emmy winning, that I happen to mention, we have it right here, was something that we were awarded last year for what we were able to do with our M&E partners and being there for the organization and their members to get us through the situation of keeping the content flowing, keeping things and the output for pre-production going. So we're very proud of that. And it was sort of like the icing on the cake to the year, to a very hard year for all of us. So how does this work? Well, you take the Emmy award-winning HPZ Central Remote Boost software, and that's the last time I'm going to say that, sorry, it sounds nice to say still. And we have our endpoint devices. So the endpoint devices, those are the things that you have at home. And just to make it a little bit clear, let me get you our little laser pointer here. So these are the things you have at home. This could be a MacBook. This could be a Linux laptop. This could be your Windows 10 system. And it could be a HP device. It could be one of our thin clients, or it could be another PC. Any PC probably built in the last 5 years, laptop or desktop is going to work fine for connecting. This, on the left-hand side, is our racked workstations. This could be the Z4s. This could be another piece of hardware that's by another company. The software doesn't care. We do sell licenses for working on other systems, and about half our user base is based on that, for having this license to use it with anything. And we also support virtual machines and cloud instances for the remote access part, because we have 2 rules of design: keep it simple and do no harm. And I'll talk about those. Are kind of reoccurring things, but basically we want to keep it simple as possible, so we don't have special audio driver needs. The software that you're running doesn't know it's us. We are there because we're exporting something called the frame buffer, and we keep it simple by just using whatever you have in your existing infrastructure. So if somebody could walk up to a system and use it with their current access rights, or somebody else could collaborate with that system and be on that same system, that's all we use, whatever you already have done. This yellow line right now represents kind of a firewall or a gateway. So you have things outside that coming in, and in that you have this HPZ Central Connect, and it's managing the HPC Central Remote Boost. So think of ZCentral Connect as kind of a librarian. You come in to the library, you walk up to the desk, you show the librarian your ID card, they look at it, that tells you the permissions that you're allowed for the reference books that's behind them. And we have these pool of workstation notions, which is to say, a single workstation does, you can have 10 of them that all could do the same thing. Doesn't matter which one a person gets on, they're going to be able to do that because as an admin, you've managed that for them. Think of, editing bays, if you will. That's a really good example, or something to do with modeling or rigging or what have you. And this makes sure that person has the rights there based on how you've already set it up, and allows them to connect. And then when they're done, they check it back in, they get their ID card off, and away they go. It works just like that. It's very simple to maintain and set up. And that augments the HPZ Central Remote Boost. So Remote Boost is point to point, and then we have this augmentation for being able to direct where that's going if you don't want to use the direct point to point of facilitating pools of systems, or making it so the user does not have to understand specific machine addresses or IP addresses. And again, HPZ Central Remote Boost, license free with Z. So if you have Z, you're already good to go on this, and can implement, and people have implemented this worldwide. So the next thing to look at is how this goes forward with our tasks for the, let me get this to go forward. There we go. How this works with our hardware. So remote boost software, I think I've gone through this enough, but it is available for Windows and Linux on the receiver side, the sender side, excuse me, that's these guys over here. And on the remote boost receiver side, it is Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. And what's key about that is that it is not a situation that you have to do any licensing on the receiver side. So you just load it and go. With that, we also have a remote boost software, and we have something called dynamic resizing that I'll get into today. We support multiple displays, 4K, graphics hardware acceleration, which reduces the bandwidth about 4 to 10x, depending on what you're doing. We have something called HP velocity, and I'll touch on these things in the demo. But we have everything that is there is trying to deliver the experience to the user with a minimal impact on their home laptop, however old or whatever it may be, or if they're actually at work and wanting to do a one-for-one session with monitor matching and everything else. Plus, we also have new support for Wacom tablets, and this says new. It is with the last release, but we'll be improving it in the release that comes in the next month or so. We've done a lot to improve, and by improvement, when we're talking about it, everything is about responsiveness and reducing the perceived latency of when I do something with a pen and when I sit on the screen. So the human factor is the ultimate judgment. Finally, we've talked about this already, but it's having these connect, talk to a workstation, and it all being managed. We use something called an agent on the workstations or the remote device you're connecting to see how things are going and being able to tell if the machine is ready. Finally, in terms of features, with our current ZCentral systems, if you implement vPro, which is part of what most of our systems come with, it's Intel vPro, it has something called AMT. If you implement this in your environment, we have implemented this within our software for simple point and click. This gives you full power control. And this gives you the ability to go up to hard power on, power off, just like you're sitting next to the machine. And finally, this also gives us ability in this little orange box for our systems to speak to this admin console, this ZCentral Connect, and tell you if the workstation proactively had a problem, like it hung during boot up, the things that are listed here. So you know there's a problem with a remote system before the user does, because you've gotten these kind of this information that's given indication of an issue. So with that, what we're going to do here is go into our demo. So hopefully that made some sense. Hopefully you've had a chance to put in some questions, and I'll be happy to answer those through our Q&A. But let's go ahead and get to the demo. And with the demo, what I'm going to do is go through the ZCentral admin experience, and let me get rid of that, and then enter into this the way a user would. So the admin part, as I mentioned, is kind of the library, and I'll go ahead and type the demo password in here. And what we're seeing here are, these are a list of the systems that I have in our demo pool. And this happens to be in Fort Collins, Colorado. So these are all the systems that we have there for people to do different things. What's important to realize here is these are just the books, if you want, the library. I have the ability with pools to put them together as reference. These are grouped reference books. Any one is the same. And then the security groups and users imported. The only thing I'm going to show here is the power operations that I mentioned. If I hit power off for the things that are vPro enabled, they're going to shut down immediately. If you could see them, I hit power off and they're gone. The light's out, just like you pulled the plug. Power on does the same thing, like you press the button. Really important in this day and age, and of course, we're not going to do that at this point. So, high-level overview of this, and of course, we're always happy to get deeper into this. We've got an hour-long presentation and test drives if folks are interested in experiencing this more for themselves. So from a user's point of view, I would have been given a URL, this one up here from my admin, if you will. They would have said, hey, here's how you get your systems. Hit this website and log in with your domain credentials, which I've done. I'm going to choose a host. What it does here is it shows me these are the systems that I have access to. The ones in gray are systems that I have links to access, but they're not available. So there are no books left in that part of the library, nothing on the shelf. People are using those systems. what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose this multi-display. Now you'll notice it doesn't tell me anything yet, so I choose the host. And what it does is it's telling me, oh, I chose this machine out of the pool for you, and it's powered on. It's okay to connect. If as a user, if I needed to, I could shut down or restart this if I wanted to, just like it's sitting next to me. Same experience, but obviously we don't want to do that, so I want to connect to it. So what's happening is this is launching the ZCentral Remote Boost software. And unfortunately, I have 3 screens here. So I will, well, yay, it popped up on my screen. Sometimes, Windows software can play hide and seek. And I'm logging into the system. You'll see it's authorizing down here. It's authorizing that account against Active Directory, and now I'm there. So I'm here for collaboration. I'm here for working with people. And what's interesting to note is I'm sharing 4K worth of pixels with you on my screen. And this is a 1080p system. So the reason I bring this up is if I go to our 1-to-1 mode, which is literally 1-to-1 pixels, and I show you this, this is what it would look on 4K. So obviously math, 1080p is being able to have 4 of these on the screen, but that's not really useful as an environment. So what I would like to do here is go ahead and make this more custom to my experience, which I happen to have a 4K, but it could be anything. So I go into this scaling mode and I connect. And what we have here is the ability to scale this to any size. Hey, Brett, if you're out there, go ahead and connect.
Hey, Clifton.
Oh, hey, how you doing? Go ahead and log in if you like. So Brett's going to collaborate with me, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. While we're doing that, some things to realize, as I mentioned, we're doing scaling here, and I have 2 taskbars, and you can see them here. That can drive you nuts if you make them the same color. I tend to make them different colors. And what the other thing is, of course, is I could have multiple screens up here. I could have make this any size. And the cool thing is this does no harm to the workstation. It has no idea what we're doing. So it is really just connecting. Now you'll notice my screen just went orange. It had an orange border on that. That's because Brett connected to be a collaborator. Now we have 2 different modes of operation. Right now we are in the higher quality mode. It's something we call HP3. This is our proprietary codec. It uses the 444 color space. And what's good about that is it is something that if you have multiple machines you're connected to, it uses no bandwidth if you're not doing anything. So I have this little tool up here at the top that shows the kilobits per second and the frames per second. So the fact I'm getting 0 just means nothing's going on the screen. It's a difference engine, nothing changed. What I'm going to do is bring up this little B here. And the purpose of this isn't really to exercise the machine or show off any special software, but it's the experiences is everything. So this little guy tries to update as fast as he can and tries to make sure that we can have a great experience. It's trying to go as fast as the refresh rate available. So to me, this is just a great experience, and I'm not getting any latency. You might see a little bit differently on the viewport window. But what I can do here is I can let Brett collaborate. Normally there'd be a pop-up window that asks me if he could join, but I've disabled that and now he can drive. So Brett, go ahead and wiggle the B a bit and play. And I know he's getting a great experience because we are sharing the same exact experience. So whatever I'm seeing for that frames per second, I know he's getting the same thing. How's it looking for you, Brett?
It's looking great. It feels like it's in real time and low latency. So how does it look on your end?
Oh, great. High quality. I think we have, the color settings just right. So if we were doing a workflow and I would say an editor and Brett was a producer, the director, he would be looking over my shoulder. It's exactly that same experience. Or if we're in a conference room or sharing something and people are wanting to be dynamic in real time, it automatically passes the keyboard back and forth. And in fact, if I can drive for a second, Brett, you'll notice down here, it actually tells us, and it could be more than 2 users. It's not designed for a 50-person thing because it's about close collaboration, but it automatically tells us who has the cursor. So Brett has the cursor now because he's blue. So he's the last person that used it. So you always know who's there, but you also don't run into any collision where you've probably run into that where multiple people are trying to screen share and the cursor, you don't know who's doing what. It's like, stop moving the mouse. won't happen here because one person could control it at a time, but it's automatic. And really, that's kind of the fundamental gist of this. We do have some other things like real-time quality settings that you can go through and adjust. So there's the ability for the user to adjust this up and down dependent upon their connection. But the good news is it doesn't affect anything on their end, and it doesn't affect anything on the workstation side, right? So it's just about the communication of the pixels back and forth, but it doesn't have anything to do. And the nice thing is, because we drop in and out and we don't change the resolution, we're not doing anything to interfere with a context change as people come in and out, because it's literally just like you're there. And for the system, it's going in and out. You could leave things rendering, have group machines. It just works. It doesn't disturb the system. It's, again, just designed to be the same experience as if you walked up. Any other questions, Brett, or thoughts?
No, I just, I'm here in Whitefish, Montana, and Clifton, you said you were in Fort Collins, Colorado. So how is this basically working?
So, and while we're doing that, what kind of system are you on?
I'm on a Mac with a Mojave OS.
Right, and I'm on a Windows system with whatever the latest Windows is. So we're actually on two different clients connecting into the system that's in Fort Collins, Colorado. So, and I happen to be in Loveland, Fort Collins, in Loveland, Colorado. So we're both connecting to a third system for collaboration and workstation. This happens to be one of our Z2 minis. And that's just to kind of show that even it can and go through the power of that. So yeah, it's really kind of interesting. And people use this all over the world for doing collaborative workflow, regardless of where people are at. Any other comments before we wrap this up for getting to the Q&A?
No, I love the image quality of this. We can work together on this B project finally.
This is great. Well, it's been nice to work with the remote control team on this and being able to do that. And Barb, are there any questions that I should leave the screen share up, or should I go ahead and drop it and we can just get to the Q&A?
I think you can drop your screen share. We can see your lovely face and your background. So yeah, we have had a couple of questions come in, and obviously people feel free to fire away other questions. So I'm going to start off with, do you have to reload specific application software if you use ZCentral intermittently over time?
That's a great question. No. So the application software, let's say it's Photoshop or Avid or something like that, isn't really aware of what we've loaded, because it works at a very low level of the frame buffer and it just taps out of the audio. So you leave it resident for all running at all times if you want, and it won't interfere with the software. And in fact, with licensing too, because you're sharing a primary desktop, if you remember, and I didn't point it out, apologies, but I was listed as primary, Brett was listed as secondary, and he's a collaborator. So what's cool about that is if it's legal for somebody to look over my shoulder and I can hand them the keyboard and they can work in my Windows session or my Linux session, whatever, it's still the same experience for the software, for the user, for the company, for everybody else. So no, there's nothing else to do.
Great. So on the collaboration mode that you were showing us, it was just you and Brett, but is there a limit? Like, how many people can remote into the same computer?
I'd like to say 1 million people, but that's probably not possible for anything. Really what it comes down to is the network capability and the capabilities of each system. Because this is an enterprise class solution, it's not a thing that's designed for conferencing to the many. But typically we have customers that use 5 or 10 people collaborating at the same time. And we're looking at it as work production collaboration. There's 2 types of collaboration. There's one is work production, where people are touching things and doing it more hands-on. And there's consumption collaboration. That would be your Zoom, your other things, where one person is kind of streaming out their information, thought, whatever. You're collaborating, but it's not quite the same time. So it's, how do you build the house? We're all about the hands-on building the house, the walls, the foundation. That takes a smaller group of people to do a more focused, concentrated thing. And 5 to 10, but it really comes down to, and especially in this world, the network that is coming out of gateway or VPN capabilities, home network. Hopefully nobody's on Wi-Fi. That is a killer for anything that's remote. And it's one of those things people check out and tune as needed.
So yeah, and I would add to that. I mean, the customers I talk to, I know people that are using like 10, 20 people remoting into a VFX soups machine. So I think in theory it's unlimited, but as you say, Cliff, it's kind of dependent on the network. So, and on that front, then can you talk a little bit about how the software mitigates network issues?
Yes, that's a great question, and that's something that is working now for both Brett and I. And Brett, when you were connected, did you have any hiccups or issues once you were connected, or did it seem to stay smooth?
Not at all. It's an easy download, and then once you're logged in, you get notified, and it was off and running right away.
And I probably was remiss in this. I forgot to ask you two to introduce yourselves. Perhaps everybody else knows, but we're on a new stream. Brett.
Sure. I'm Brett Harrison. I am the demo participant here. And when I'm not participating in demos, I'm working with AIS to produce conferences like Remote Control.
We pulled Brett off from his today's job and asked him to join the demo as a neutral third party to give his opinion on the experience. So I'm Barbara Marshall. I work with Cliff at HP. I'm the industry manager for media and entertainment in our advanced computing solutions division. And I'm here to moderate the questions and sort of be the bridge between the audience and you guys. So Cliff,
that's your question.
Yes, to answer that question.
I forgot. So we have something called HP Velocity, and HP Velocity is something that uses a technology called UDP. So TCP is what a lot of the information is going. It's very common. It's what people do for the remoting. But UDP is a back channel, if you will. If you look at it like in a very raw, kind of a rough fashion, the way a RAID hard drive works is it stripes different information on different hard drives. So if you lose one drive, it can rebuild that information that was lost from the information on the other hard drives. Same idea, except we're doing it with packets and streams of pixel information. So if we lose a packet or it gets out of place, we attempt to reassemble that so the user doesn't see it, because we're sending redundant information on all the packets when we're in this mode of HP Velocity. It's automatic. It doesn't turn on all the time, but it does monitor network connections. And when jitter or latency gets too large, it kicks in and starts to try to mitigate that. Very important in today's WAN, remote from home type situations.
Great. So another question, this time from Tony. He's asking, how soon will ZCentral work with Mac computers? So maybe you could talk a little bit about what OS works and when.
Sure. And that's a question that we get all the time. And I assume that they're meaning on the sender side, that being the part that's remoted at the office. We are looking at that now. I can't give you a date, but it is something that we do hope to have a solution for this year sometime. And it's something that all of our customers have asked for. Obviously, as many folks are aware, they boot camped their Mac systems to Windows to get through this COVID situation. But I'm even aware that folks are continuing to use the Macs and purchase them because they do plan to at some point go back to them, especially since the infrastructure that has the Mac environments, the workstation, already has all the IT management tools in place for dealing with that. So they're kind of, you actually have an infrastructure that's can't be used for a thing that used to be there, and everybody wants to get back to that and get life under a little bit under more control. So we're very aware of that, and we've got a couple different solutions that we're looking at that we will be able to talk about a little bit further in the summer. And we've been getting really good feedback listening to all our customers, and I'm very excited about what we have personally.
And then just sort of building off that question, I know, Brett, you mentioned that you were using a Mac. So I just want to reiterate that currently the receiver device can be Mac, Windows, or Linux. And the sender device, the computer that you're connecting to, the powerful computer that you're connecting to, can be either Windows or Linux. So, a lot of combinations and permutations. So, Cliff, what next? Do you have any? Are you allowed to talk about anything that's coming up? Have we got any?
Sure, we could go into that a little bit. Just at a high level, some of the things that people have asked us for and that we are implementing in the next release have to do with better user management. And this is more from the Connect side. Obviously, with the remote connection point, this is our remote boost point to point. We continually to work to improve performance, to add features, to optimize the path, because it's really all about speed, making the software lightweight. But on the Connect side, the part that's getting there, we're implementing scheduling features so that you have the ability to reserve machines, check them in, check them out, kick folks off with different rules that an IT person might implement, so that this notion of a pool starts to become more automatic than it is something within an organization that they can control and deal with. So that and a couple other things. There will be some press announcements at the end of this month, next month, that will speak to this more fully. And I encourage everybody to look for those. And we're very excited about where that's going, how our team is growing, and some of the things we're going to be able to talk about this summer. It's really a good time for us on the software side at ZCentral, and working with our Z Workstation team and the rest of HP to implement these things for the M&E industry and the rest of the world. We're very happy to be part of this, and look forward to the continued feedback to getting to a solution that works for now and in the future, especially if we're in a hybrid situation where sometimes it work, sometimes not, but you can't accept upset in the environments of the talent that's doing the skills that are driving the revenue that are paying our salaries. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thanks, Cliff, for that sneak preview of what's coming. So we're at the end of this session. So I'm going to thank everybody for joining us, and thank you, Cliff and Brett, for doing the live demo.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Clifton.
Thanks for remote control too, guys. That was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Clifton and team. And now Buzz Hayes has the results from our poll questions. Buzz.
Thank you, Jim. So again, the poll question we had earlier was, do you expect that your work will be busier than last year? And interestingly enough, you'll find that only 7% of the respondents said they would be less busy. Surprisingly small number. About 29% said it would be roughly the same workload they had, and an overwhelming 62%, nearly 2/3 of the respondents, said they predict they're going to be busier than ever. And I know personally that has been the case with my work. I do think now is the time to kind of rethink the work-life balance. You know, one of the things I do to cheat the system, if you will, is I commute to work every day by taking a walk in the morning to kind of reset the day from morning family activity into business activity. And I take a walk, and then at lunchtime I'll take time off for lunch, and then I'll do the same thing at the end of the day, and I'll take a little walk at the end of the day. And that helps me frame the day in a way that makes sense. So now here's the trailer for Thunderforce.
There used to be a great tower alone on the sea.
Hi, I'm here to see Emily Stanton.
You have an appointment?
I'm her best friend. We're not currently what I would say best friends or friends.
You look good. You look great.
What have you been up to?
Let me show you. I've been developing a genetic platform that will allow us to give ordinary people superpowers. But do me a favor, please. Don't touch anything. Dear God, Lydia. Do you have any idea what you've done? You just took our only formula for super strength. Everything about you will become stronger.
My groin. Do chicks have groins?
What's your superpower? Invisibility.
That's awesome. Let's see what these powers can really do.
Everyone just stay calm and no one's gonna get hurt.
Em, stop! You're cooking them from the inside out!
Oh, man.
Please don't film this, sir. It's a mistake! Thunderforce, remember it.
For the first time in history, we're seeing real-life superheroes fighting crime.
Upper dirty.
But we're also seeing a new kind of criminal.
This city deserves what's coming to it. Boom.
It's go time.
Oh,
We've got to rethink this car. Yeah.
How can we not stop two chicks in their 40s?
God, what's that smell? It's the suits. We can't wash them. Lydia, do not throw that bus.
I can't hear you because I'm literally throwing a bus!
I'm sorry. That's on me. The hell are you?
You'd think Cancer, but Capricorn actually Sag Moon, and all kinds of things rising.
That's messed up.
Without physical facilities, creative teams have had to adapt to new remote workflows. Our next guest serves as the CTO at Evercast, where their new system has been honored with an Emmy Award for its empowering collaboration in the production industry. I'd like you to please welcome Jon Walkenhorst. Thank you, Jon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jon Walkenhorst. I'm the CTO for Evercast, and I wanted to thank the AAS community for the opportunity to talk about Evercast and the concept of cloud and what it means for us, and then what we think the significance is for the content creators. So I'm going to kind of start with a little bit of a background myself and where that fits in to the big picture and how I ended up at Evercast. The foundational technology for this idea of virtual collaboration isn't as new or as groundbreaking as I think many may believe prior to COVID. Back in 2013, working at a company called Technicolor, we were working on an early version of what fundamentally much of what Evercast and a number of our competitors have today. And this was virtual collaboration from workflows that existed from on set all the way through post and distribution. When I first started in cloud, there was a lot of confusion and apprehension of what the concept of public cloud was. And there was a great deal of money spent, at least in my domain, on trying to build the cloud functionality, but on premise with capabilities of ephemeral and scalable, but still doing it with what we were calling CapEx. And we realized that the economics didn't support the sheer number of amount of gigabytes and petabytes that are being created in the industry, even back in 2014, 2015. So I think the economics really were the first step that opened the eyes, and this concept that public cloud is a thing and it wasn't going away, but it also introduced concepts that I think in the beginning reduced concepts of fear that were in the beginning, that cloud really has security. It has specialty, it has logging, things that on-prem many companies were struggling to do. And once that companies could realize that CapEx didn't have to be allocated, and you could use OpEx in an ephemeral way that matched the way cloud was growing and constricting, we saw many of the original studios move quickly to onboarding their own content into cloud instead of just pushing it away at arm's length. So the first tools that went on were asset management, metadata, content syncing, the ability to access some of the data and get the data into compute that was rendering, that was transposing, transcoding. Those opened up these workflows. And the technology demonstrated that it worked and that it didn't have to be untrusted. It didn't have to be too radical. So the next steps we saw in the migration to cloud, at least in my experience, was that data storage and migrating appliances style storage. So migrating data on appliances to file level, or from file level to block level, introduced a fairly easy lift. So you didn't have to have these appliances, thousands of them, or lots of data. And the next step, it was linking physical users and the compute to cloud virtual machines. So once you had the data in your cloud, whether it was remote or public, being able to get the users access to it so they could work with it, process it. And then moving much to that off-prem onto public cloud or even shared cloud, so that the business models could adapt and the business pricing and structures were tolerant. And then lastly, adjusting the fears and the unknown. So salespeople who were comfortable in the way they sold the product needed to reevaluate so that the additional costs of going to cloud were reflected in the new pricing models. So what we learned is that data is ephemeral, but human nature is slower to update. So in 2020, without access to physical facilities, we saw that creative professionals had to adapt with the pandemic and COVID, and technology was already in the field. There were a number of companies, including Evercast, who've been around for 3 or 4 or 5 years. But the predictions that this technology was going to mature in 2025 or later were completely undermined when we had to change our workloads and move it off-prem. Sorry, we had to go home and do it. So before COVID, those working remotely made up less than 5% of the total employed in film and industry. There were times in 2020 where that was the only way we were allowed to work. And we know today there's roughly 800,000 freelancers working globally in a virtual way. And while 54% of adults say they want to work remotely, after the pandemic we're allowed to go back to work. It'll be interesting to see how many of them are allowed to or choose to. And what we see is a hybrid work from home scenario where you may go on premise for part-time and you may stay home for other times, or we'll see a significant change in the way we travel or how we do scouting and location or how we do early versions of collaboration and ideation. So this idea that the nascent growth of cloud required leaders to persevere and wait for luck. So in 2015, when Evercast got started, there was a hope that eventually shift in workloads and shift in biases would allow it to become real. But what happened was the wide acceptance of cloud was both organic and inorganic. And we were fortunate to be in the right place at the right time with the right product. Not only that was usable, but was also in a secure way acceptable to the CISOs and those who are responsible for content security. So those of you who are not familiar with Evercast, we are initially a cloud-based virtual collaboration. We have nice tie-ins with both Adobe and Avid for the Windows and Mac users. We are a turnkey solution, meaning we can install on any number of devices. And I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. But you don't need a complex infrastructure. You don't need a big network. As long as you have access to the content, either locally or remotely, you can install Evercast and get to work. And this allows you to have the same concept of looking over the shoulder as though you were in a physical facility in a way that's both low latency and high quality. And from a security standpoint, we bring the cloud to you. You do not have to upload your content to our back end. We run wherever you are. And that's some bad rendering. But what happens? So in 2020, we grew over 1,400%. We maintain top-level security approvals from all of our major studio and streaming service. We have multiple enterprise deals with enterprise studios, advertising agencies, gaming animation companies. And we are a recipient of the 2020 Engineering Emmy for remote collaboration. And then we are used in all studios and all levels in 14 different countries across the globe. And we're seeing some of the fastest growth in influencers in gaming outside of just entertainment. So if I talk about the high-level functions and features, we have a 24/7 support, which means you can get someone in real time in your room. You can make a phone call. You can get retrained. You can get whatever access you need to get the support you need so that you're not left trying to solve a problem on your own. We have support for multiple simultaneous HD screen shares, meaning we can run multiple screens. We can connect to multiple cameras. You can have multiple on location and be able to aggregate it. We have the ability for every user or participant in a room to share their own screen, and you can choose which screen you want to see. We have the ability to do stereo and 5.1 surround on Windows. We'll have Mac shortly, and I'll talk to them a little about that. Our average latency tolerance is 150 milliseconds, which we find adequate or for many of our use cases. We have users in both APAC and East Coast that connect to a West Coast infrastructure and are able to operate essentially halfway around the globe at any given time. And we do not need to, and we don't even support the uploading of your media to our backend. We ask that you keep your media local in whatever secure solution you have. We are a cloud native architecture. We have encrypted end to end, which means we encrypt it at rest. If you do choose a recording, and it's encrypted in transmission. We have secure recordings of store, meaning if you choose a recording, it's stored in a secure bucket for you, and you're the only one who have access to it. The ability to stream from air-gapped machines, breakout boxes, and reference monitors, meaning if you want to have a high-level, high fidelity and color, we have the ability to support that. Again, security approval from all major television and film studios. And our idea here is we started with creative editorial, and we now have functioning real on-set workflows. We started with the product, what we call Motion Plus on the right, or Professional. We have 2 additional products that we're releasing in the next few months. The first one we call Visual. This is our lightweight entry product that we have launched in a major studio today, and this gives us the ability to have 4K screen shares for those who are just doing static, or if you're an editor, or if you're a screenwriter and you want to share those screens together. We will be coming out with Motion, which is the ability to do video streaming, but it will be more for fewer streams, one stream or fewer number of participants. Today we have just the web app client. We will be launching our native desktop app in the next few months. We will have the mobile app. We're targeting April 1st, and then we'll have the the Apple TV app shortly after that. And then we'll be integrating features like EBS into our desktop app. We'll be eliminating the use of stream keys if you've used EBS before, and you'll have full admin control of more layouts and more touch bars. The desktop app will support Windows, Mac OS. We'll have color finishing. We have 8-bit today, 8444. Our goal is to have HDR 10-bit 422 as soon as the Windows app is ready to ship. We have 5.1 in Windows. We'll have 5.1 in Mac once the native Mac issue ships. So there are a number of high-level workflows that we use today. Traditionally, we started in post-production, but we have production on set. Like I said, multi-stream, live camera, dailies integration, and these asset management controls. We have editorial, review, and spotting and finishing. And then we're bringing in professional audio. We have ADR, we have loop group, we'll have mixing, we'll have music creation with time code. And then we'll have more support for our current product and tying with the enterprise IT system. So you'll have control if you have an enterprise, and your IT teams will be able to control it and have tighter granularity. One of the things that we focus on is, even though we have much of our content, our clients' content is local, we've learned that there are times when content is on premise, and we need to be able to make that content available, or you need to be able to access that content from wherever you are. So utilizing tools like HP ZCentral and their remote boost, you're able to, from wherever you are, start up a session, go into a secured, say, a network, then be able to start up Evercast and a stream and broadcast that into an Evercast room, and you have participants who are able to access that. content via normal methods. They don't realize where the actual sender or the Evercast content is originating. This allows you to be wherever you are. And we had a clever use case where we had a director sitting in a car on an iPad beta version, needed to do an edit, and was on that for 2 hours participating remotely with that iPad. We see that this really is the future, what we call the collaborative innovation and remote editing, or at least remote contribution. So whether your content is local or whether your content is remote, you'll have access to it. You can install the Evercast product, either the native client, which is coming, or the browser. With that, we're looking to continue to drive more workflows, not just in media and entertainment, but also in other use cases like advertising and in gaming, where we're seeing some creative pushes of our expectations and R&D. The slide that we like to talk about, or at least I like to get in here, that shows us some of the major content tools that are titles that we've utilized. Just in Netflix alone, we've touched every product that they've released natively. Beyond that, we have other studio films that are coming to market. I'd now like to turn the time back, see if there are any questions.
Thanks for being with us today, Jon. One of the questions that has come up is just in general, you don't have to talk the very specifics, but how the pricing model works itself, whether it's a subscription based, a per seat thing, how that works at the individual level and at the enterprise level. If you could talk about that a little bit.
So it is subscription, both individual and enterprise. So you can do it per month. There is bonuses or benefits doing on an annual. As we continue to go down this path, and I show you there are 3 different products. On the furthest right product, and we'll move into the enterprise capabilities, you'll be able to add different features, and you can even upsell and choose things you want and don't need. So if let's say you wanted ADR, but you didn't want HDR, you'd have the ability to choose and just pay for what you needed.
I see. Interesting. Okay. And in terms of I know you talked about the connectivity issues a little bit, but are there basic connectivity specs? What's the minimum bar to entry in terms of connectivity from the public internet into Evercast?
So that's a good question, and that's I think what I've seen is kind of the Achilles heel of all of these remote collaboration tools. Because we don't require you to upload the content back to the cloud, we're seeing HD quality with less than 10 megabits upload. Download is not the big deal. It's that upload capability. Now, if you are sitting remotely and your content is in on-prem, you're not actually broadcasting up, so you don't really suffer from that. You're just setting your KVM controls. And that's an advantage that you get if the content's more remotely. But then you have a little bit of latency if you're trying to run Adobe Premiere remotely and trying to adjust those things in real time.
That's great. And one of the other things I'm curious about is the reaction by the creatives, because one of the things that has been missing from this remote workflow up to date, not yours, but in general, is the idea of getting back to what feels like collaboration. How can you call somebody in with no notice really and just say, hey, could you take a look at this thing? I'm having trouble, trying to figure this out, and you want to just share it with a bunch of people at the same time. What have been the reactions of that so far?
So I'm not quite sure I understand. So our core functionality and as why we came to market was to solve just that work scenario. There are times when it's scheduled, and you know that at 10 o'clock in the morning you're all going to get on and you're going to spend 8 hours going through your episode for that week. And then we have a number of clients who just start up their day, hop into their Evercast room as though their door was open. And you knock when you go in, and you come in and have a conversation. You can bring your own content in. As I mentioned, every participant in the room can screen share. And you can then look at each other's work in real time. And
That's
you don't
great.
have to hand the baton back and forth to the old conch shell if you go back.
No,
that
that's
far.
great. Because as you know, every little decision is turned into a half-hour video conference these days. So anything we can do to get back to that more immediate collaboration is great. So anyway, I really thank you for being here today, Jon. I really appreciate what you folks are doing, and looking forward to all the next iterations that you have coming. It's very exciting what you have going on. So thank you for being here. I think that's all we have time for Q&A today, but we look forward to seeing what you got coming up next.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. So Jim, I think that might be a wrap for this week. I want to thank Barbara and Jon and Clifton and Rob for being here. But most of all, I want to thank you as my partner in crime in all of this. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Buzz. That is our show for today. Great thanks to Barbara Marshall, HP, Rick Champagne at NVIDIA. We also want to thank the people behind the scenes here. Michael Mansouri and team from Meetmo and Radiant Images, Verizon 5G Labs for their great facilities, and Sony Electronics for the equipment to help make this possible. Also thanks to Damian Petro and his brave new media team and our friends at the PGA, VES, ASC, and NAB show. And of course to you for joining us. These presentations will now be available on the Advanced Imaging Society's YouTube channel. We'll be back next week, Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, where we'll have some incredible 5G demos. Thanks for watching. This is AIS.